There are three main types of programming statements like sequential, decision control, and looping statements. In sequential statements, the code simply executes line by line, one after another. There is no change or alteration in the execution of these lines. There is no branching and no condition checking involved in the sequential statements. Next is the decision control statements. In this type of statements, the flow of execution is completely based on the conditions mentioned. There are different types of decision control statements like if else, if else, switch. Decision control statements are usually used to have conditional execution. If the condition evaluates to true, it executes some part of the code, and if not, then it will either skip or jump to the next part of the code. We will see this in the next slides. And looping statements is the third type of statements in programming language, which says that a block of code can be repeated multiple number of times based again on the condition. So if the condition is evaluated to true state, it repeats the block of code. Otherwise, it jumps out. Some types of looping statements are for, while, and do while. Let us focus on decision control statements in this chapter. Why do we need decision control statements? Sometimes the situation arises where some decision must be taken whether the part of the code should be omitted or executed. These type of statements allows the program to take different action based on specific conditions. It also makes the program dynamic and responsive depending upon the inputs or the states in the current situation. In this slide, we will understand using if statement, a very basic one of decision control statement. Once the program has started its execution, it tests for the condition. If the condition is evaluated to true state, it enters the block of if and executes it once and continues later with the further part of the code. And in case the condition is evaluated to false state, it skips the entire block written in the if part and jumps immediately out where the if statement has ended and continues with the rest of the block. We can see the syntax here. If condition, opening and closing brackets. The condition has to be mentioned in this parenthesis and the code has to be written in this piece of curly brackets pair. Let us see the example here. A program to check if the number is positive or not. In main, I am declaring an integer variable num and its value is 10. If the value of num is greater than 0, the condition is true and it enters the block of the if statement and it executes the print statement. The number is positive. This is written on the output screen. Goes to the next line, executes if there are any more lines. If not, then ends up the if statement and continues with the next line of the code if any. One thing to notice is if the condition is false, it skips the entire block of if, which means this won't be executed and it will directly jump to the next line after the if block. So how we can set a condition that I want to manage both true and false part of the Boolean states? So in that case, in if-else statement, the block executes to both the states, like it will work separately for true state and separately for false state. So if the condition is executed to true, the if block will be executed, and if the condition is evaluated to false state, the else part will be executed. We can say that else is a dependent block of if. However, if is an independent block. This means that if we are writing an else statement, it should have a subordinate if block code. Now let us see the flowchart shown here. The code has started executing. In diamond box, it is checking if the condition is true or false. If the condition is true, it executes the if part of the code and jumps out of it and continues. And in case the condition is false, then executes the else part of the code and then jumps out of the if else and continues. This says that both the states can be handled and managed to check if the given number is positive or negative. In this program, we have a variable num with initial value -5. I am specifying the condition if num greater than 0, then it is entering into the part if the condition is true. In our situation, number is -5, the condition is false, so it is going to skip the if part and directly jump to the else part. We'll execute the else part, which is written here. The number is negative or 0. After execution of the else part, it continues and ends the program. However, there can be some situations where you need to handle multiple if and else parts. So for that, we have if-else-if statements in C. It can evaluate multiple conditions in sequence. Whichever is the first block that matches to the condition and sets it true, that block is executed and rest of the blocks are ignored. Again, here you can see in the syntax, the if statement is having one condition, it is having its support. Else if will have second condition, but I want to test for one more condition. If statement is added here in else if, so that I can specify the condition and have its another supportive code. Like this, I can add as many else if statements I want. Once I feel that all the conditions are tested, I will write the final else statement where it simply states that to all the non-matching states previously, I will be the one who will be executed. So this else will work if all the previous conditions are tested to false state. So in that case, else will work. One thing to remember, simple else statement will never have a condition. Let us see the flowchart here. The code has started executing. It tests for the condition. If the condition is true, it checks the another if else part. If the second condition is true, it executes that part and comes out. But if the second condition is false, it has the second false part, executes it and comes out. What if the previous if part is totally false? Then in that case, it goes to the else block of the code. Again, test for the another condition. If it is true, it executes it. If it is false, it executes its respective block of code. Either of this code, either this or the previous ones, whichever code has been executed, after execution it jumps to the next line of the code to continue the rest of the program. So this is how we can use if else if statements. Let us see this with a simple example. Let us say I want to print an appropriate grade message based on the scores scored by a student. Now here in main we have an integer variable score with the value 85. In if statement, I am testing if the value of score is greater than 90, then print A grade. In another part, I am testing if the score is greater than equal to 75, then print grade B. And then I am testing another else if part. If the value is evaluated to greater than 50, it will print grade C. Else it should print grade F. Else is going to work if any of this condition is not matched on the given value. So as you can see here, the value of score is 85. It will jump to this part of the code, execute as grade B and print it. So this is how we can test multiple condition and multiple states of a variable and let the program work. Now let us have a look at ternary operator. A ternary operator can be understood as a shorthand of simple if-else. In the previous if-else statement we had seen, the condition works on true state and false state. We can create the expression where the true and false, both the states, can be executed in a single statement. So it is called as shorthand. So ternary operator supports for this purpose. Ternary operator works on two main symbols, question marks and colon. The statement written before the question mark is the condition. If the condition is evaluated to true, the expression written before the colon will be executed. And if the condition is evaluated to false, then the expression written after the colon will be executed. So let us see an example here. Int num equals to 10, int result equals to num greater than 0. So this is the condition that is getting tested here. Return 1 if it is greater than 0 and return 0 if it is less than 0. So in our situation, as value of num is 10, it is going to return 1 to result variable. Whatever is the value given to the result, I am printing it, say result colon %d. So I will get a value as result colon 1. So this is how ternary operator can be worked as an alternative option for if-else statements. If you have only single line of block for if and else, ternary operators work a best way. But if you have longer codes to be written in the if part or the else part, then in that case it is recommended to go with the traditional way of using if-else statements only. So let us summarize what we have learned so far in this session. Decision control statements are usually used to manage the flow of the program based on the conditions. There are different types of conditional statements like if-else, if-else if, and ternary operator. Flowcharts and examples has been demonstrated for each of them. We hope they were quite easy for you to understand them. And decision control statements are essential for creating responsive programs with conditional logic. I hope you understood this session. Keep coding.